Coming up tonight on YCN News, a fire at the Union Block Apartments in Claremont is contained. New Hampshire U.S. Senator Kelly Ayotte speaks out against a prisoner swap with the Taliban. And Mike Pizzone will have a look at sports and weather. It's time for YCN, your local view.
Now, your daily digest of the Dartmouth Lake Sunapee region, southern Vermont, and Windsor County. News, sports, weather, and all that is happening in our area. The news on YCN, your local view.
Good evening. It's Thursday, March 26th. I'm Laura James. Welcome to YCN News. Well, for our top story this evening, it looks like firefighters. It took from 4 towns just about 3 hours to put out a fire at the Union Block apartment building on Pleasant Street in Claremont last night. First responders from Claremont, Newport, Cornish, and Ascutney, Vermont arrived on the scene shortly after 7 p.m. to find smoke and some flames coming from the second-floor apartments on the 3-story building. Firefighters were able to contain the blaze relatively quickly, limiting the majority of the damage to a few apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floors. Tenants of the building's 30-plus apartments were forced to evacuate until smoke could be cleared. That smoke, along with water damage from first responders' efforts to put out the flames, did affect some storefronts along Pleasant Street. YCN News spoke with Claremont Fire Chief Rick Bergeron on the scene.
It got into an apartment, traveled on the 2nd floor, traveled up into an apartment on the 3rd floor, inside the petitions and above the sprinkler system. Building's a sprinklered building, but we've yet to have an activation on the sprinkler system because the fire is inside the walls. They pretty much got it under control at this time, although it hasn't been officially called under control.
No injuries were reported, and the cause of the fire is still under investigation, though officials suspected an electrical shortage in a second-floor air conditioning unit was likely to blame. Turning to political news now, the only Republican among the Twin States congressional delegation continues to speak out against the prisoner swap that returned U.S. Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl to home soil. Bergdahl now faces charges of desertion, and U.S. Senator from New Hampshire Kelly Ayotte says the charges are serious. Ayotte serves on the Senate Armed Services Committee and says she trusts the nation's military justice system will process this case in an appropriate and fair manner. Bergdahl was imprisoned by the Taliban for 5 years. His release a year ago resulted in the prisoner swap, an exchange authorized by the White House. Ayotte says she remains deeply concerned by President Obama's administration to complete the swap without notifying Congress first. 5 Taliban members were released from U.S. custody. Ayotte says no assurances were given to Congress that the Taliban 5, as they are known, will not pick up the fight against the U.S. and its allies. This dangerous national security interest, says Ayotte in a news release. Well, a Quechee, Vermont man charged by police with domestic assault is facing an additional charge. Mark McComas allegedly violated the conditions of his release. That, according to Vermont State Police, between March 17th and 20th, the 45-year-old McComas allegedly contacted the victims in this case. Earlier on February 25th, McComas was arraigned in Superior Court on charges of first-degree aggravated domestic assault and domestic assault. McComas is scheduled to appear in court today on the additional charge of violating the terms of his release. Coming up on YCN News, the fate of the Keene Pumpkin Festival still remains a mystery. Vermont is looking to keep handguns out of the hands of felons, and UNH is part of the Grand Challenges Engineers Initiative. More news, sports, and weather with Mike Pizzone when YCN News returns.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. I'm Laura James. Well, it remains to be seen if there will be a Keene Pumpkin Festival next October. A Keene City Council committee has turned down a second request by the nonprofit Let It Shine, the group that hosts the annual fall celebration. That, according to the Associated Press. The permit rejection by the city's Planning, Licensing and Development Board may have something to do with the security plan to keep the weekend under control. Last October, while the festival went on as usual without a hitch along downtown Keene's Main Street, it was a different story off campus at Keene State University. Negative publicity focused on an off-campus riot, more than one, fueled by intoxicated students. It took police dressed in riot gear to bring things under control. About 100 people, including students from other colleges, were arrested as well. Let It Shine wants the city to develop a security plan and pay for it. The plan would cost over $300,000. The next crucial vote on the Pumpkin Festival's future will come on April 2nd. That's the date the Keene City Council is scheduled to review the situation. Well, the Vermont Senate Wednesday gave overwhelming approval to a controversial bill that aims to keep guns out of the hands of violent felons and mentally unstable individuals. But Second Amendment activists will look to stall the legislation in the House. Vermont Public Radio reports the long-awaited floor debate over the gun bill finally arrived yesterday afternoon. Bennington Senator Dick Sears suggested to his colleagues that the legislation boils down to a simple question of policy. The bill would also try to keep guns out of the hands of people deemed by a court to be a danger to themselves or others by requiring their names to be uploaded into the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. Now, that's a system that flags ineligible buyers when federally licensed dealers run a background check prior to completing a transaction. The UNH College of Engineering and Physical Sciences is among more than 120 U.S. engineering schools leading a transformative movement in engineering education. Announced at the White House during its 2015 Science Fair this week, Brooks Payette is the Communications and Outreach Coordinator for the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences at the University of New Hampshire and reported in a letter to President Barack Obama, UNH and peer institutions committed to establish special educational programs designed to prepare undergraduates to solve grand challenges. They're defined as complex yet achievable goals to improve national and international health, security, sustainability, and quality of life in the 21st century. Together, the school plans to graduate more than 20,000 students formally recognized as Grand Challenge engineers over the next decade. Well, they say it's all in the name, and this one really says it all. The Slurpee, Derpy, and Derby and Double Pond Skim Race is taking place at Ragged Mountain Resort in Danbury, New Hampshire. That's coming up this weekend on Saturday. Now, you can wear your Hawaiian vest and or swimsuit to try your hand at the Double Pond Ski Race. Live music and, yes, outdoor tiki bars will be there, too. If you'd like more information about registration, just go to raggedmountainresort.com. So if you haven't heard of the roller derby, you are in for a treat. River Valley Chronicles' Elizabeth Durazio will have an interview coming up. She's hanging out with Ellen Reeder of the Upper Valley Vixens. She's known as the Felon of Troy, and that conversation with Elizabeth is on the way when YCN News returns.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. It's spring. That means changeable weather. Let's see what's coming up next. Mike?
Thanks, Laura. Things started out nice enough today, but rain eventually took over and it looks like it's here to stay for at least another day. Temperatures will drop to 33 degrees tonight, making for slick roads as that rain turns to sleet and snow. Clouds will remain tomorrow with a 30% chance showers continue through the morning, but things should taper off by the afternoon with a high of 41 degrees and a low of 22 tomorrow evening. Saturday will bring partly sunny skies with a high of 33 degrees and a low of 16. Now let's take a look at our community calendar to see what's happening in the area. Stevens High School will hold its annual spring concert tomorrow at 7 p.m. in the newly renovated high school auditorium. There is a $2 recommended donation with proceeds to benefit the school's band and choral programs. Greater Falls Connections will hold its monthly meeting tomorrow from noon to 1:30 p.m. at Parks Place in Bellows Falls, Vermont. The group will discuss underage drinking as well as updates on the coalition's work. Visit GreaterFallsConnections.org for more information. The 15th annual Big Kiwanis Auction for Children's Charity will be held Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the Sugar River Valley Technical Center on South Street in Claremont. Visit ourkiwanisauction.com to see items and information on how to bid. Last night I visited the Claremont Senior Center to witness an event unique to the city in which the top student athletes of Stevens High School are honored. Once again, there was a great crowd on hand for the 59th annual St. Joseph Sports Night last night. The event, sponsored by the Claremont Elks Club, honors Stevens' top seniors for their accomplishments both on and off the playing field, with a dinner, awards, and speeches from both the athletes themselves and an acclaimed guest. Chase Hussey, a member of the football, basketball, bowling, and baseball teams, was named top male athlete, while classmate Caitlin Belair, a soccer standout and member of the unified basketball team, was named top female athlete. Soccer, basketball, and baseball player Daniel Croto took home Unsung Hero honors, with soccer and basketball player Brittany Fitzpatrick being named Unsung Heroine. The 4 student athletes gave emotional speeches in which they thanked family and friends for their support, before keynote speaker Roger Carroll took to the podium to explain the magnitude of the event and the achievements of Stevens' 4 standouts. Carroll is an alum of Lebanon High School and worked at both the Valley News and Eagle Times before becoming the editorial board editor of the Nashua Telegraph.
There's nothing quite like this that I know of anywhere. When the community comes together to honor not only academic excellence, but academic achievement and character. They don't do this in Lebanon. They don't do this in Hanover. They don't do this in Nashua. This is an event that is distinctly memorable. It's the community's way of holding you up as their hope for the future. You are Claremont's heroes. So enjoy this night and know that wherever you go and whatever you do, Claremont will always take pride in your accomplishments, and I thank you for letting me be part of it.
The Dartmouth softball team came away with the split in its doubleheader with Maryland yesterday after a dramatic win in the nightcap. The Big Green broke a 5-5 sixth-inning tie with a pair of unearned runs to improve to 7-12 on the season. Morgan McCollum drove in 3 runs in Game 2 and earned the win from the circle. That does it for sports. Now, Laura, back to you.
Thanks so much, Mike. We will have the final part of John O'Connor's interview with a professor from Dartmouth College on the Middle East when YCN News continues.
The YCN News continues in a moment.